Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to your corner at the Four Corner Society. I am your host, Ben, and today we're going to be going over our tier list video for the Expert Marksman related to Divinity Original Sin Enhanced Edition. Sorry about the delay of getting these pushed out. We had some friends visiting from California, so I obviously wanted to give them my undue attention or my complete diligence when it comes to my attention for them. And so it was very fun. We had a great, week essentially, and I'm ready to hop back into it. Just to let you guys know, the reason why I'm doing this is because I'm super excited about Baldur's Gate 3. I'm a turn-based strategy game lover, to the ends of the earth. I love RTS games, things like that. These games really drive my attention. They are the basis of what I have enjoyed my entire life related to video games. And so I want to share that with you, make some time. Sometimes playing these games is a little daunting, so having somebody kind of guide you through that process, giving you a generalized concept of what it is to have an enjoyable playthrough or experience playing the game helps. So that's kind of what I'm trying to do as well, is give you guys a basis of, hey, if you want to play this class, this is the typically what type of spells you should run with them. There's a whole lot of nuances when it comes to Divinity, but this is a good kind of start. And then as you go through your journey, the fun part about RPGs is you just get to experience them for yourself. I know in Divinity Original Sin, one of the greatest things that the game has to offer is its unlimited playability potential. You could literally do multiple different playthroughs, multiple different styles to actually play the game. And that's one of the reasons why I love it. So, without further ado, we're going to hop into the Expert Marksman spell tier list, starting off with the Doctor spell. So, what I'll do is I'll read the spell to you guys. It will show up on the screen, and then I'll rank it from S to D. So, the Doctor spell, which is this one right here, cures weak, blind, mute, and infected. Grants 1 bodybuilding for 2 turns. When you're building a character, once you get to level 5, that's the highest you can get for the specific class you're going for. You can have 6 novice spells, 4 adept spells, and 2 master spells. So most of the novice spells that you get, or most classes, are going to have max 6 spells, so you have to take all of them. So you will take Doctor. It has some good things like curing blind and mute. So if you're running mages in your party, or if you're running 2 archers in your party or something like that, that can be extremely useful if your characters get blinded. And if they get muted, like not having a wizard who can't cast spells sucks. It is not a good feeling. It doesn't happen often. It's not like a all the time kind of deal, but when you do come across those encounters, it definitely you struggle a little bit. So having something like this to be able to free up their ability to cast spells and CC the enemy, encounter, that's extremely important. So with the Doctor spell, the fact that it gives it bodybuilding as well, making them more resistant to crowd control, I'd put it in the C tier. It's not game breaking, and the general class archetype for an archer or the expert marksman is you have to deal the damage. You're the damage dealer. You can do more damage than typically anybody in the game. And so that's why when you're running more supportive base skills, you're kind of lowering the optimization or the class features more than you would rather like run someone like a Hydrosophist in your party if you wanted to have a support character. So Marksman is all about dealing damage, so I would put Doctor in the C tier. Next up, we have the First Aid spell, which is right here, guys. Cures status effect bleeding, crippled, and diseased. Heals target for 10%. Personally, I think this is useless. You would much rather, and typically probably have a healer in your party, like the Hydrosophist. This really doesn't heal that much, and you don't. And the statuses that it does help, like cure essentially, aren't really game breakingly bad if they're on one of your party members. So this is a D tier. You rarely use it, and the range on it sucks. Next up is the ranged power stance, which is this spell right here. I know there's 2 that look very similar. Improve damage with bows and crossbows at the cost of precision. So let me just it's damage plus 20% damage, and your chance to hit is minus 20%. So the more damage you get, the better. This is definitely S tier. It's extremely useful. You literally buff all of the damage that you deal by 20%. You pop this, which is a free action. It costs 0 action points, and then you use some of your big spells, and it just does a ton of damage. It's just great. Definitely need to use this typically all the time. And there's ways to offset the chance to hit or the losing 20% chance to hit by buffing your character. So you can buff up the chance to hit, so you don't really take any losses with the chance to hit, but you increase the damage exponentially. So it's pretty good. Next up is the ranged precision stance, which is right here. What it does, improve chance to hit with bows and crossbows at the cost of movement speed. So your chance to hit is plus 30% and your movement is minus 50%. So with the stances, you can't have one stance or you can't have multiple stances active at a time. So because of that, because this power stance is in the S tier, you have to put precision stance in the D tier. Next up, we have the ricochet, however you pronounce it, ricochet or ricochet. I think it's ricochet. But fire a normal arrow that deals 100% weapon piercing damage and then forks off to the next target up to 4 times within 8 meters. This is a good spell early on in the game. It lets you start to deal more damage and really get to see the potential of the expert marksman. The marksman typically is not super strong late game or early game. It is very strong late game. So this is like your first taste of that power that you get from the marksman. I would put it in the B tier. Or I'd put it in the A tier. I'd put it in the A tier. It does a decent amount of damage. If you hit all of your spell, or if all the arrows hit, you can essentially do like upwards of like maybe 200 to 250 damage with one spell. That's kind of a big deal. So it's definitely useful in that aspect. It's got good range too, obviously, because they're a marksman. Next up, we have the Splintered Arrow spell, which is right here. Fires an arrow that splinters on impact, dividing 250% weapon piercing damage over enemy targets in an 8-meter radius. So it has action points of 7 as well. This one I would put in the B tier. It does help getting you kind of that cone area, dealing a ton of damage with them. But I would actually say that the Ricochet is better than the Splintered Arrow spell, and more than likely you're going to want to be using Ricochet. But these are novice spells, so you'll take both of them, and whenever they're off of cooldown, you're going to want to use it, and then you just kind of position your guy to where it will do the most damage. So, if your guy if the angle is only hitting a couple, just move them, to the right or left a little bit to where they can hit like 3 or 4, and it will deal a lot of damage that way. Next up is the Treat Poisoning. This is this spell right here. Cures poison. Target gains 100% poison resistance for 2 turns. So early on in the game, you get poisoned a lot. And actually throughout the course of the entire game, there are quite a bit of poison-related mechanics. So it has viability in the social aspect, and it does have some viability in the combat aspect. The one issue that I have found using this specific spell is when you're ranged, you're very far back from the fight and you're not around your allies. This is a good spell to remove poison from yourself. But the fact that it has a 3-meter range, which is it's a fairly small circle compared to a lot of the other spells that you get access to. This really doesn't have a lot of impact other than removing poison from yourself. And so with that, I'd put it in the C tier. It does have usability, but it is very limited. So that is C tier. And that's actually all of the novice spells for the marksman. We're going to go ahead into the adept spells. Remember, you can only keep 4 of these. So at the end of the video, I'll go ahead and I will showcase which spells I would include for your build. 6 novice, 4 adept, and 2 master spells. So Absorb the Elements is the next spell. This is this one right here. Decrease armor, but grant higher resistance against all the elements. If you've seen any of my mage spell tier lists, I hate this type of spell. I don't find it useful at all. I've never really gone into encounters that are like, man, these people are doing all ice damage. It's pretty diverse. They don't really have like, I guess other than Boreas, that's like the only fight I've experienced where it's like a ton of of a specific type of damage. Other than that, I would kind of just put this in the D tier. I don't think it's useful at all. So let's just not use it in our build. Next up, we have Barrage. Barrage is this spell right here. So remember, Marksman, you're trying to do a ton of damage. So fire multiple arrows in a straight line, each dealing 75% weapon piercing damage. This is a great spell. It does a ton of damage. It has 6 action point costs. I would put this in the A tier. Your main goal is to just deal a ton of damage. So this is a great like single target DPS. DPS meter right here. So definitely use it on bosses. Use it on like very high high profile targets to go after in certain encounters. It's a great spell. Next up, we have the Farseer. So this is where I was saying Farseer or range power stance offsets it. So what this does is grant a target improved sight and plus 50% chance to hit with ranged weapons for 4 turns. Removes blinded. Great thing, it's 2 action points. This is S tier. You combine these two, you gain 20% damage and you actually gain 30% chance to hit. That's insane. Definitely take this all the time. Next up, Infect. I haven't really found, this is the spell right here. Infect a target with a vicious disease. Also, I have to note this too. Infected has a chance of infecting everyone that comes near the target. I don't see a use for this because marksmen want to deal damage. Any turn that they're not spent attacking or dealing as much damage as possible, I think is wasted. So Infect, in my opinion, is D tier because of that reason. Survivor's Karma. So this one actually is, I know I just said, hey, we want to spend deal damage. Well, this is a great one to do that. It increases luck and critical chance of you and all around you. It has a 6-meter range. So this actually I would put in the I'd probably put this one in the A tier if I'm being honest. Survivor's Karma. The fact that it increases everyone's critical chance is a big deal. And the reason why it's a big deal is say your warrior gets in there and they swing and typically they do 50 damage, but because you use Survivor's Karma, they go in there, they swing, and the up percentage gives them a critical hit, and now they did 250 damage. That like will immediately, with no kind of repercussion really or no negatives, give you an edge in combat. You can potentially one hit their biggest enemy off the jump because you're using this. So I would go ahead and run this in my builds for sure. And then last up on the Adept is Vampiric Arrow. You see the little bats coming out of it. An arrow that deals half of your weapon damage, 50%, 50% weapon piercing that fully heals you over 2 rounds. My general opinion on this, I would put it in the C tier because it doesn't do a lot of damage. It heals you, which is good, but typically it has 4 action points. You would rather use a potion, which is 2 action points, or you would rather just get healed by your Hydrosophus character. So it doesn't really have something like a great use. You just have to live by marksman deals damage, and when you're not dealing a lot of damage or you're not giving yourself buffs that will deal a lot of damage, it kind of falls off. So that's Adept spells right here, and we're going to go into the master spells. So there's 3 total, and we can pick 2. So first up, Arrow Spray right here. Arrow Spray. Fire 16 arrows in a 45-degree arc. Each arrow deals 50% weapon piercing damage. S tier. This can single-handedly remove one opponent from the fight. You do all of your buffs. You can do freaking your power stance, your Farseer, into your arrow spray, especially if you use like glass cannon as a talent tree or one of your talents that you pick up. Dude, this thing does crazy amounts of damage. Highly recommend using it. Next up, we have the Rain of Arrows, which is this spell here. Let a shower of piercing arrows rain down on your enemy. Deals 30% weapon piercing damage to each enemy. This is also S tier. What I like about the master spells for the expert marksman is that their action point costs are actually way lower than a lot of the other master tier spells that you have access to for other classes and stuff. So like 7 action points and then 8 action points for this one. But what this one does, it's a fairly it's like a medium-sized circle. You drop that thing down there. It's kind of like the pyrokinetic meteor shower, but it's with arrows. And it deals just a ton of damage. So definitely S tier. Your whole goal at marksman, freaking deal a ton of damage. And last up, guys, we have the shrapnel scatter right here. Shrapnel scatter, I just put it in the D tier. There's no real use for it. It could be fun, like if you're doing like a off meta build or kind of just having fun with the build process. But whenever someone dies, you can make that a corpse explode, and it's like making your own bomb essentially off of a corpse. So target a corpse or a container and make it explode. The flying debris will damage characters around it. It blows up your target. So, I'd rather use the other two. So I put this one in the D tier. So let's go ahead and reset this, and I will go through all of the spells that I would pick for an expert marksman. So you have Doctor, First Aid, Range Power Stance, Range Precision Stance, Ricochet, Splintered Arrow, and Treat Poisoning. So let's go ahead and pick the ones for the novice that you obviously would take. Ricochet, you would take Splintered Arrow. You would take Ranged Power Stance. I probably wouldn't take the Precision Stance. You'll take Doctor. You'll take First Aid. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then you'll take Treat Poisoning. So like I said, if you have this one, you don't need this one, the Ranged Precision Stance. So that's the novice spells. Next up, we'll go through the adept. You can take 4 of these. So with the adept spells, you'll take Farseer. You will also take Survivor's Karma. You'll take Barrage. And then between Infect, Vampiric Arrow, and Absorb Elements, I'd probably take Vampiric Arrow because it has some damage involved with it. The other ones I wouldn't even touch. And then last up, with the Master Tier spells, you probably guessed it. You're probably going to go Arrow Spray and then Rain of Arrows and leave the Shrapnel Scatter to the winds. So, thank you guys so much for watching. Really do appreciate it. I'll be covering all of the classes with Divinity Original Sin. Stay tuned for my Baldur's Gate 3. I actually just downloaded it, and I've been playing around in the early access. It is, in my opinion, going to be the best RPG game for the next 10 years to come. It's setting the standard. I've actually seen quite a few videos of people like, this is not the standard. This is the outlier. This is people who are going above and beyond with their game creation. Well, we're the consumer. Like, companies should want to go above and beyond for us because we give them our money, and we don't need half-butt products. So thank you guys so much for watching. Like, subscribe to the video, comment if you want to see other type of content related to Divinity Original Sin. And with that, I will say adieu. Peace.